Hello, hello, hello. I hope you are having a wonderful time. I don't know what time zone you're in. I'm Lou, and today is week 3 of Old Fashioned Film Month. We are going to start with our intro question of the week. What is your favorite actor to portray Holmes? And honestly, I have to go with Jeremy Brett. I love so many different adaptations, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore Ronald Howard, and I love My Dearly Beloved Detective, and there are just so many that are really wonderful. I especially love the voice actor for Beekeeper's Picnic, but Jeremy Brett is where my heart lies. He is one of my favorite people on earth. I miss him so much. He died before I was born. He's just overall a very human and sweet person, and he takes the character of Sherlock Holmes and really shapes and adds on to Doyle's original characterization instead of replacing or stereotyping. I think what he does is very intelligent, very suave, very charming, and that his Holmes is just my favorite, and he's really beautiful as well. Alright, on to our diva of the week, Helen Stoner. Not a lot of people talk about the ladies of the canon. That is why I go about it. If someone were to list 5 women in the canon, they would probably start with Irene Adler, Mary Morstan, Mrs. Hudson, and falter a little bit. But I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to tell you that Helen Stoner is one of my favorites because she's just so incredibly brave, and I feel like a lot of people overlook it because I know every other case, it's this single lady client that Holmes doesn't necessarily get along with is getting stalked by her father or is having an odd arrangement. But she really went through it. She watched her sister die and still was able to keep going, and she's just really wonderful, and I adore her. Alright, on to our adaptation of the week. This week, one of my favorites, Sherlock Holmes 1954, starring Ronald Howard and H. Marion Crawford. Now, this is a very good series. That's all. That's the end of the video. And it was Victorian in nature, which, when we went over Gillette, Victorian was the modern day. And when we went over Rathbone series, 1940s was the modern day. But this really goes back and writes a love letter to the Victorian canon all over again, but offers a kind of different perspective and definitely tweaks the stories a little bit, but all for a good reason. I think that the original storylines are very captivating as well, and really for a series that was 39 episodes long with 20 to 30 minute episodes, it really did a wonderful job conveying these stories. One of my favorite parts about this is that Sheldon Reynolds, who produced this Sherlock series, decided that he wanted to present a kinder Sherlock Holmes, a nicer and more jovial Sherlock Holmes, the kind of Sherlock Holmes that blushes when he's praised and goes around all happy and excited about the world. And Ronald Howard completely agreed with this and decided that it was the only way for this character to move on. H. Marion Crawford played John Watson, and he's actually a very incredible John Watson, one of my favorites, personally. He's very strong, he's a military man that certainly has his flaws, and certainly is not quite as smart as Holmes, but still matches in that intelligence and is able to reach the same conclusions, that is able to be a good foil for Holmes, and is very valuable to the stories. A lot of people cast Watson aside or decide that he should not be as smart as he ought to be, and I think that is a darn shame. When I was researching this, I honestly didn't come up with anything that shows that, for example, this impacted Sherlock Holmes or was set in a completely different time period with completely different motives. But what I really did come up with that I thought was actually very interesting is that it's American. My trivia for you is that this show is not produced in England, filmed in the studio or in France, and all of the London images are stock footage which I think is just really funny. The first show that was filmed in America after this was Elementary, which, if you don't know, that came out relatively recently. So I find it really interesting that we kind of left it to the British and sometimes the Russians. Honestly, they do a better job anyway. It was received very well and even inspired a second Holmes series that Reynolds produced entitled Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, which actually came out in 1979, and many of the episodes for the 1954 series are revamped and remade in the other series, which stars Jeffrey Whitehead, Donald Pickering, and Patrick Newell. I find that very fascinating because, honestly, while I have not seen the second series, the first is so good that I don't really know if you can remake it. And finally, I would like to say for Impact that, while it wasn't necessarily well known or crazy impactful on Sherlock Holmes himself, it really offers a new and strong perspective and a beautiful view and characterization of both Holmes and Watson. I think that a lot more Sherlock Holmes adaptations, if there are more to come, should be like this, and I do see some of these picked up in like the Granada series or even some of the modern ones to a lesser extent. The idea of a happier Holmes and a braver Watson, which I really appreciate. Now it is time for our creative prompt of the week. Describe one character trait or stereotype that you'd like to see reversed. Honestly, I love what they did in the Howard series. I think that the idea of Holmes being this cold, apathetic, awful, unkind person is really untrue to his character because he is shown to be so polite and kind and really joyful. He giggles so much in the canon and is very kind to everyone that he meets until he knows that they're not a good person. I think that idea of having Holmes be cold and rude is a way to exaggerate the intellectual and logical aspect. And similarly, I think the idea of a dumb Watson is absolutely terrible. I don't think anyone should ever do that. He is literally a doctor. I don't understand how he got to be so bumbling. When you search up bumbling and sidekick, you get the phrase bumbling sidekick Watson as part of the definition. And I think that's absolutely tragic. He's so much stronger than that and deserves so much more credit. And finally, for your homework, I want you to watch the first episode. It's literally 20-something minutes long. It's very short and honestly such a beautiful watch because it might seem slow as it's obviously older film and that was the style of filming. The way that you see the characters interact with each other, the way that you see Holmes work and Watson and Holmes getting to know each other, they take a lot of the Case of the Cunningham heritage from A Study in Scarlet. And you can see them get to know each other, and it's really beautiful. It's very sweet. I think a lot more adaptations should start like that. Looks away from A Study in Pink. I just really appreciate it, and it's really gorgeous. That is all for today. I really enjoyed this one. I love talking about the Holmes adaptations that I've seen extensively. And as much as I understand the importance of some of the popular ones like Rathbone, like Gillette, like freaking Benedict Cumberbatch, I think that this is such a hidden gem and it's a really beautiful, beautiful series. So that's all, and thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe because I'm desperate.